friends, it's Christy. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be making a card using the adorable Neat Tangled set Later Alligator, and I'll also be using the My Favorite Things Fun and Frolic 6x6 pattern paper pad. I've stamped my images out in Memento Tuxedo black ink on some Copic friendly cardstock, and I'm going to be coloring with my Copics today. I'm going to be using some yellow greens. I'm using YG03, YG05, YG07, and YG09. I'm starting with my YG09 and laying in some shadows on the underside of the little alligator or crocodile's body. These could be either, since there are sentiments in this stamp set for both. But then I'm going to blend out with the YG07. On that one leg that's on the farthest side of his body, I'm just going to use those two shades since it would be cast in the most shadow, but I'm leaving a little bit of room on his little arms and his other leg for some more highlight. So next I'm using the YG05 and blending out the edge of the YG07, and then I'm going to bring in my YG03. Now my YG03 is one of the oldest Copics that I have. It's a Chow, so this was before I had the sketch markers, and you can see that it's running a little bit dry here, so it didn't make as nice of a blend as I wanted. I did go back with the YG05 and kind of flick some of that color in, and I colored the additional alligator as well. And now I'm going to come in and add some dot detail. I'm using the YG09 and the YG07, and I'm mostly sticking to the shaded areas, and this is just going to give him that kind of scaly texture and also add a little bit more personality. For the scales down their backs, I'm using G28, and I'm just going to color them in solid since there's such a small area. And then for their bellies, I'm going to use Y11, Y13, and Y15, starting with the Y15, and I'm shading on the left-hand side of his body. I'm going to imagine that my light source is between them, so I'm going to shade the other one on the right side of his body. But I'm blending out with the Y13 and then using the Y11 for my highlight. And I also colored in both the frog and the bird's bellies with those yellows as well. And now moving on to my little stuffed animal frog. I wanted him to be a different shade of green than the alligators, so I'm using G20, G21, and G24. I started with the G24. For him, I'm shading on the right hand side since he's going to be dangling from the hand of the alligator that'll be on the right hand side of the card. For the inside of the frog's mouth, I'm going to use R22 and R24. It's a red with a nice pink undertone, so I thought it would work well for that. And then I'll use the R29 to color in his little tongue. And then I'm also going to take the R29 and R24 and color in the tail and fin and lips of the fish balloon. And for those, I'm adding the shadow right where the crease would be where they're attached to the body. For the rest of the fish, I'm using YR04, YR07, and YR09, starting with the YR09 on the left-hand side for my shadow. This is going to be towards the center of the card, but it's the accessory for the alligator on the left-hand side, so I just decided to shade it in the same way as I did that one. Then I blended forward with the YR07 and the YR04, also used the YR04 for the bird's beak, and then I decided to bring in the YR02 because I thought that balloon was getting a little dark and I wanted it to be a little bit transparent. For the bird, I'm going to use BG01, BG02, and BG05. He's also going on the left-hand side, so I'm adding my shadows in that direction, starting with the BG05, and then blending with the BG02, and then I'll finish him off with the BG01 as my lightest shade. I'm going to bring in a white Sakura Jelly Roll pen and just add a little shine mark to my balloon. And then I'm also going to bring in a black Jelly Roll pen, and I'm going to use that to enhance the eyes of my critters. This is a subtle detail that just packs a lot of punch because it makes their eyes look nice and bright and shiny, really helps them to come alive, and it adds a tiny bit of dimension as well. And now I'll just trim these out with the matching dies. For my focal panel, I've got some light blue cardstock trimmed out with the MFT Elegant Rectangle Stacks, and then I've also used 2 of the MFT Grassy Hills. I'm going to take the darker green one and glue that down to the base of my background using some Tombow Mono liquid glue. And then I'll add the lighter green in front, so that's just going to add some depth to my scene. I've got 2 clouds die cut out of some white cardstock using the MFT Cloud 9 dies. I'm going to add the larger one in the top right corner and then this smaller one a little bit lower on the left hand side. And there's a look at those dies. And now I can begin to add my images. I'm using some more of that Tombow Mono liquid glue, and I'm going to add this little guy down over on the right hand side. Then I'll grab the other little crocodile or alligator and add him on the left so it looks like they're facing each other. And I'm also going to add him on that one leg so it looks like he's running down the hill. And then in between them I'm going to have the little fish balloon, and it's going to look like it's gotten away from the guy on the left, and so they're kind of chasing after it. And then I'll add the little frog stuffed animal to the hand of the crocodile on the right, which I think is so adorable. That's like my favorite image in this whole set. For my sentiment, I'm taking some dark gray cardstock, and I'm going to stamp my sentiment using Versamark ink. It's a clear sticky ink that works great for embossing. And then I will coat that with some white embossing powder. I did treat this with a powder tool off camera before I stamped as well. And then I'll bring in my heat tool and melt that until all that powder is nice and white and glossy. Before I put my Misty away, I'm going to also stamp the inside of my card. I'm using Lawn Fawn's freshly cut grass ink, and I'm stamping out the 3rd alligator and a sentiment that says Happy Birthday Wild One, and that is from the Neat Tangled set So Foxy. And then I'm going to complete the story from the outside by adding the balloon into the alligator's hand, so it kind of lets the recipient know, yeah, he did catch his balloon. To assemble my card, I have trimmed down my pattern papers using the MFT A2 Stitch Rectangle Stacks Set 2 for this large striped pattern. I'm going to adhere that on top of the card base. It just leaves that nice tiny little border so that it allows that green cardstock to show through on the edge. And then I'm going to add this orange print down to the center, and that is trimmed down to 2.5 inches tall by 3 3/4 inches wide. I've added some foam tape to the back of my focal panel, so I'm going to pop that down just a tiny bit high of center so that I have room to add my sentiment underneath. I've trimmed that out using one of the MFT Blueprints 29 dies, and now I'm going to add that using a little bit of foam tape on the part that's going to hang over the edge and a little bit of liquid glue for the part that's going to overlap the bottom of the focal panel. Then I'm going to grab the little bird that I colored and die cut earlier and add that to the left hand side of the sentiment. And that is going to complete our card for today. I'll give you another peek at the inside. And I decided to leave it without embellishment since it is a more masculine card. If you enjoyed today's video, please show your support by giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to my channel if you haven't already. I would love to have you. You can also hit that notification bell if you want to make sure that my videos always end up in your feed. Here's 2 extra videos you may also enjoy, so hopefully those will tide you over until my next one. Until then, I hope you all have an amazing day. Bye-bye.